Okay, so in this video, I'm going to talk about the use of uh, the concept of colorism to explain why some employers prefer to hire lighter skinned people of color over darker skinned people of color. And the reason I think this kind of discrimination happens is because a lot of people have these different preferences of social statuses based on race and skin color, which is just not true and not really fair to people of color. But it's definitely a problem that happens in the workforce. I've definitely seen it as working like even summer jobs. They will discriminate against a lot of people. I know there was not a lot of people of color in the town that I grew up in working like any jobs, which was really messed up. It was whack. And but skin color stratification is basically it's people distributing unequally according to skin color, like distributing income, resources, anything. And yeah, so people just have an unfair bias on certain people based on their skin, and they think stereotypes that aren't real, and can really mess up people's lives because they can lose jobs or not get jobs based on it. And I think it's unfair that people lose or can get hired just based on the complexion of their skin and how light it is or how dark it is. And the second question about the Indian advertisements that promote skin whitening creams, which I would not have expected coming from India, which it blew my mind when I first read it, because I know in the States, I think people go after more of a darker skin tone. That's why tanning beds are popular, tanning creams are popular. People are trying to get almost a light skin complexion compared to just a white or what they used to call fair skin. But on page 20 or on page 123, there's an example of an ad that would be for women's intimate wash, and it shows how before she took a shower, she was stressed, and her husband ignores her, and then after she showers, her husband pays attention to her, and she is more confident. But it just shows that it has a whitening cream in it, and that kind of brings it back to, there was another part in the chapter where it talks about how tanning lotions wouldn't say it's a blackening cream, but like lotions that are trying to make your skin lighter can say whitening. It's just kind of messed up and not really fair. But it relates to colorism and gender, since beauty standards are mainly focused on what women need to do rather than what men do. So yeah, that's kind of it. But for the last question, question 3, I've noticed, at least in the makeup industry, many women of color have to either mix shades to find their right color, or just have to stick to one or two brands. And the author would compare this to the beauty standards of that lighter skin is preferable. And on page 123, or not page 123, I don't know why I said that, but another example of colorism would have to be in television shows and commercials. And one of them is a movie. I think I forget what it is, but it's like a Vietnam War movie, and it has Robert Downey Jr. in it, and they completely blackface him. Like, he plays an African American man, and I mean, he looks the part, but it's just like, why couldn't you just hire like someone of that like race or that color of skin to play the part, rather than hiring Robert Downey Jr., paying him a bunch of money, and then having to do makeup on him to make him look black? Like, that just didn't seem fair. But that was one example that like instantly came into my mind when I first read it. But the author would probably say, well, yeah, I mean, that's basically it. And the author would probably say that this relates to colorism because of skin color privilege, where, lighter skin tones have more favorable characteristics than other races, which doesn't really make sense. And it kind of takes it back to how I don't understand why in chapter 5 they kept saying that fair skin or whiter skin was more desired, when at least in America, the trend is definitely to have darker skin. Now, I know in Asia, and at least in like old Europe, they were trying to go after a lighter skin tone with like the powders and stuff. And I know like in the Asian culture, there's not a lot of like dark skin. There's not a lot of mixed races in Asian culture, which is, kind of messed up, but it's, it just is how it is. But yeah, so it's in tons of media, which kind of goes back to the last chapter that we read about, how, or one of the chapters that we read about, where they were talking about media and how like they try to stay away from stereotypes, but they end up doing it anyway, unintentionally or intentionally or whatever you have it. But yeah, but it's just kind of messed up how people, even like going back to the first question, how the color of your skin. I mean, I've always wanted to know if someone were to, like, if let's say if you took the Robert Downey Jr. before the makeup when he was white, and you had him go do a job interview, and then had him do the same interview but as blackface, like what would happen? Like what would be the result? I know there's tons of stats and tons of data that you can research about it, but it's just kind of messed up how a lot of society, at least in this class, is teaching me that a lot of society is based off your race, even when you don't know it or it's not blatant. But yeah.